All right, welcome back, class. On today's episode, it's just me, Mr. McDonald, because everyone is super busy. But I did see the Thunderbolts, and I wanted to talk about it in a spoiler-free review. All this and more in a Mr. McDonald and the Thunderbolts episode of the Fandalorians. Teachers by day, nerds by night. Okay, class, that is the bell. Class is back in session. Welcome to the Fandalorians, Teachers by Day, Nerds by Night podcast. We are the #1 pop culture podcast by public school teachers. Every week, we bring you the latest entertainment news, reviews, lively debates, all with a fun teacher twist. Sorry, see, I'm doing this without edits. As proud members of the Unfiltered Studios podcasting network, we mix lifelong friendship with plenty of banter and good-natured trash talk along the way. You can email us at thefandaloriansmailbag@gmail.com, or you can text us at 631-494-3632. Since we get new listeners all the time, allow me to introduce ourselves. I guess it's just me today. So my name is Mr. McDonald, New York City public school teacher, and the man who seems a little lonely today. Because if you couldn't tell, nobody else is here. It's just me. So Mr. Richardson was busy. Mr. G was busy. I mean, life gets in the way. You guys know how it is. But they did find a way to contribute to this podcast that I will get to in a minute. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about the Thunderbolts. Now, I saw this movie Sunday night with my son, and I wanted to talk about it, and Mr. G couldn't do it. Mr. Richardson couldn't do it, so I still wanted to do it, so let's get it out there. So the way I got it is I had Mr. G and Mr. Richardson contribute questions to allow me to do a spoiler-free kind of review to talk about the general themes and the general ideas without spoiling the ending, because not everyone has got a chance to see it. I know Mr. Richardson is going to try to see it this weekend, and Mr. G, he's probably going to wait till it comes on demand, maybe even go on Disney. So we shall see. So let's get started. The first question, I don't know who wrote each one, so I'm going to try to guess. The first question, I think, is from Mr. Richardson. So, what are your initial impressions of the movie, the ensemble cast, and their chemistry on screen? So I think this is an interesting question. And overall, I really enjoyed the movie. Now, there are very, very, very few Marvel movies that I don't enjoy at least a little. But what I will tell you is I did really, really enjoy this movie because Thunderbolts reminded me of kind of what I consider peak Marvel. And I don't think peak Marvel is Endgame and Infinity War, although that is like the pinnacle of Marvel. Peak Marvel is when they told kind of smaller, kind of self-contained stories, and it was kind of genre films. You know, like my favorite is Winter Soldier, but this could have fit in with Winter Soldier. It could have fit in with Iron Man 3. It could fit in any of those kind of similar genre-y movies. Because what Marvel does well is they take their kind of formula and change the genre. And I guess for this, it would be kind of an A24 film that is a Marvel movie. The cast is fantastic. I cannot say enough about the cast and their chemistry. They are charming together. They are funny. Just about every character in this movie is someone that you've seen before. And so I like this kind of does what Infinity War and Endgame do, where they kind of mash up combinations that you wouldn't think you would see, because you get Yelena, and you get the Red Guardian, but then you also get Ghost and Yelena, and then you get John Walker and Bucky, and then Bucky and Red Guardian, and all of them are just super fun together. So I was really, really, really impressed by this movie. Next question. I guess this one, I can't tell if this is a Jimmy or Charlie question. But anyway, how does the Thunderbolts fit within the broader MCU in terms of tone and style? Now, I'd said it before how Marvel does their best work when it is genre work within, and this does that as well. But it certainly fits in because it moves the overall story along. It mentions previous Marvel movies without having to actually seen them. It talks about Red Hulk from Captain America, Brave New World. It sets up kind of the next Marvel movies as well. It has a post-credit scene that I think one is really funny and one is kind of important. And it surprised me, and it sets up a lot in the MCU. And so it certainly does fit in. The tone of the overall movie, it is both light and dark, if that makes sense, because it talks about some serious, serious issues. It talks about anti-heroes, heroes that have done some, quote unquote heroes that have done some really bad things, but for allegedly good reasons. And it talks a lot about the issue of mental illness, which I thought was super fascinating, and I'd love to talk about with the boys just more in general later after everyone sees this. All right, next question. This is definitely a Charlie question. What are your thoughts on the character introductions and the development in the film? Now, most of the characters here we have seen elsewhere. So the only main character that we haven't seen is Bob. And Bob is the Sentry. I mean, I'm not spoiling anything. That was anyone who reads the comics knows who he is. He gets introduced early in the film, and he is kind of the audience surrogate where we see these guys through his eyes. And, Bob is very similar to everyone else. He's not a great person sometimes, for sometimes justified reasons. And it's super interesting to see kind of the idea of absolute power corrupting absolutely. And when you do understand why he does everything he does. I think he's very, very charming as a character. The actor is Lewis Pullman, the son of Bill Pullman. And what I think is hysterical is he looks just like Lone Star in Spaceballs. So every time I'm watching him, I'm just looking at him. I'm like, Lone Star. And if you don't understand that reference, you should definitely watch Spaceballs, by the way. But his relationship with everyone else was very, 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 very fascinating. And it really did kind of, cook, especially his relationship with Florence Pugh's character, Yelena. She is, she just crushes this movie, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, next question. How does the movie balance action, humor, and emotional moments without revealing plot details? So let's talk about this really, really quickly. The action is good. The action does a lot of things really, really well. Now, there's no oh my God, there was the Daredevil hallway scene, or there's no fight like there was in not Falcon Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier. But there are a lot of really, really good action sequences. A lot of the stuff that you saw in the trailer, like the Void, how he kind of blips people. It's not really blipping, I know, but it looks fantastic. It's funny because the characters are not good people, so they get to say all the things they want to say. It's like they can be mean to each other in a way that Captain America never could be. So it's close to having 5 or 6 Tony Starks almost. And so that does work out really, really, really well. there's lots of emotion in this movie. I mean, this arguably could be the most emotional Marvel movie that they've ever made. And that's including Endgame, where, three main characters, or two main characters, I should say, die. Spoiler alert. Um, but it deals with such heavy issues, the idea of loss, the idea of depression, the idea of not being everything you're supposed to be, the idea of letting people down and still living with that. Every character is bringing something emotionally to the table, and it does serve their character so much. There's every character here you care about in some way, shape, and form. Now, this next question sounds like a Charlie question. So let me see. What expectations did you have coming into the film, and how did it meet or challenge them? I had pretty high expectations after the trailer. Before the trailer, you're like, okay, whatevs, because you see the actors, characters, chemistry together, and that makes you think that this could be an exceptional movie. And you know what? It was an exceptional movie. I really, really enjoyed watching these characters interact, watching them grow, watching them do all of these other things. And so seeing that on film makes you remember about the best of Marvel. And that's what Marvel does really, really well. So, next question. How do the visual effects and cinematography contribute to an overall experience? I'm going to stick with the visual effects here because cinematography, I don't know. It always all the cinematography I feel like is good in Marvel. They certainly get their money's worth, but the special effects don't always seem that way. Now, in this movie, I thought the special effects were fantastic. I thought it would have been rushed, like many Marvel movies, but this is after the slowdown. The effects look great. They look very practical, very lived in, and it looks like they didn't cheap out at all. And the cinematography, I mean, all the Marvel movies look great cinematography wise. They're shot very well, and I don't know that much about it. Angles and stuff like that, and who's in what frame. That's not my thing, but I can always tell bad special effects, and I could not see the seams here. I thought it went really, really, really well. And so that does certainly contribute to the overall experience. There's a scene, it's, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's, they're all coming together kind of sequence, and it's fantastic effects. It's dramatic. It promotes the story. It drives things along. And so it does really make things entertaining. All right. Next question. What themes or messages do you think the movie explores based on your viewing experience? That sounds like a Jimmy question. All right. Well, we'll see. All right. I mentioned a lot already. It goes into some dark kind of thematic places, not just with the fact that these are anti-heroes that have killed sometimes many, many, many people, but also the kind of grief that comes along with that. Like I mentioned before, it does dive into mental illness and depression, and there's a physical manifestation of depression if you couldn't figure it out from the trailer. I don't want to give too much away, and the sadness that goes along with that. And the idea that when you are alone, it is the greatest villain in the world. But when you're with someone, or someone's willing to help you, to tell you you're not alone, it's one of the greatest things in the world as well. And so I really thought that they did some really, really heavy emotional lifting. And I thought it was super. It made me care more about the characters. You see Yelena, and she's still getting over the loss of her sister, the fact that her quote unquote father, the Red Guardian, is not quite in her life as much as she would want. And It does. It weighs on someone. She's doing a job that she's kind of unfulfilled. It's just not the same. And she wants the quote unquote family. And I get it. Everybody wants the found family if they don't have the real family. Yeah. So next, how does the Thunderbolts compare to other superhero team movies that you've seen? It's very different. It's darker than a lot of the other kind of movies. I mean, we made our predictions before. You were like, oh, they're going to do the Dark Avengers, or it's going to be like the Suicide Squad. Now, what I will tell you is DC wishes their Suicide Squad was this good, because I think a lot of it is the fact that we knew these characters already and we know a lot of their backstory, so they don't have to do the heavy lifting right there on film. You kind of bring that with you. And they're not nice people, but they choose to be nice to each other, and to everyone's benefit. They have to learn to trust. They have to learn to kind of delegate. And there is a lot that happens in this movie that's super, super, super important. What does it remind me of? It reminds me of the Avengers if all 5 characters were Tony Stark. And I say that in a good way. I think it is very witty. I think it is very emotional. I thought it was very, very well acted. Had some fantastic performances with people that had lots and lots and lots of chemistry. Next question, and we're going to start to wrap it up. Would you recommend this film to both Marvel fans and newcomers? Why or why not? So this is interesting because I like to think about it this way. Would I recommend this film to Jimmy, a Marvel fan? Absolutely. Will Jimmy like this movie? Absolutely. Jimmy may possibly like it more than I, because Jimmy has always cared about characters. And if there's one thing that this movie does, see, I'm going to paint Jimmy in a corner here, because I'm going to try to predict what he's going to say about the movie. So then he's going to try to zag, but I know that what Jimmy really cares about, he cares about the characters. Because I get it too. He wants to see character interaction, character growth, and it has this in spades. Every character kind of learns something, like with the exception of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character. She doesn't quite play the bad guy, but she does play kind of the nemesis. It's one of those things that if you do bad things for a good reason, does that make you a good guy or a bad guy? And, it's just fascinating. So I think Jimmy's going to really, really like this movie. And right now he's probably listening going, oh, he's right. And so now he's going to try to think of another way and say, well, actually. And so I'm very curious to see how he's going to come back from that. Now, for non-Marvel fans or newcomers. So this one I like to think about Charlie. Charlie's going to see this. If he sees this at home, he's going to really, really, really like it, I think. It's super well done. It's entertaining. Now, the only problem is this is with every Marvel movie. It requires a little bit of homework, because there's something about every character, except for Bob, that you need to know about already. At least, they do a nice job of kind of implying that John Walker's kind of jerk, and Ghost is kind of broken, and the Taskmaster's there, and Yelena and the Red Guardian have a ton of work to do, but you can tell they legitimately do love each other. Very father-daughter, and that's exactly what both of them really, really need. And so it would be a fun watch, I think, for anybody. But these are some of the things I just wanted to get out, and I want to know what you guys think. So it's one of those things that if you guys wanted to email or text us, you certainly can. You can certainly email us at thefandaloriansmailbag@gmail.com, or you can text us at 631-494-3632. So these are things that I thought was super fascinating. And I thought it was important enough to talk about. I would have liked to talk about it with Jimmy and Charlie, but life gets in the way. I certainly have missed my fair share of episodes. I think this is the first episode that we've ever done totally solo. So I get to put that feather in my cap. But I want to know what you guys think. I'm sure that Mr. Richardson will have some thoughts of what I thought he was going to say and ultimately why I'm wrong. But we'd love to hear from you guys. So for Mr. Richardson and Mr. G, who couldn't make it, I am Mr. McDonald. We are the Fandalorians. The buses are coming here now. I'm trying to wrap this up. I forget how we do it now. Now it's gotten weird. Well, anyway, we'll catch you next time.